covered kind of the insanity of diets last time and how they're not sustainable, which is why we see great short-term results and none of them seem to have great long-term results. The counter to that seems to be just be happy where you are, right? But it is okay to want to improve, right? Whether that's performance or whether that's weight loss or muscle gain, all of those things are affected by our nutrition, or we could more the clinical term of diet, right? What we eat. And so that's kind of where we are at with our nutrition coaching. We want to develop a way for you guys to make the changes you want, right? But do it in a way that makes sense. So we've basically developed a plan, right? That allows us to make those changes in the right time, in the right way, so that we can sustain those changes and actually reach and maintain those goals. Now, the basics work like this, and you can do this on your own, right? You're going to need to spend some time researching and understanding kind of the best practices, depending on what your goals and things are. But this is essentially the plan you'll follow when we do coaching. And like I said, totally do it on your own if you're up for it. 1, you're going to log your food for at least a week, up to 2. Why? Because we want an idea of where you're at, right? So this is the chance to not change anything, but just see. You want a snapshot of where you're at. If this isn't an accurate snapshot, in other words, if you do what everybody does when they fill out surveys and pretend they're doing better than they are, it's not super helpful. So you want a very honest, accurate assessment of what your eating habits are now. Time of day, kind of the types of food. We don't really get too much into quantity, unless we have to, more on the performance end. But for most people, it's just what are you eating and when are you eating, right? Then we need to find out where you're going, right? So what are your goals? Because believe it or not, people have different goals walking into a gym or into a lifestyle change. So let's see, what do you want to get? So if you know where you're at and know where you want to get, it's much easier to do the third step, right? Which is to create a plan. So we call it habit roadmap, but essentially we'll sit down with you. And that's an important thing. This is a collaborative process, even when you're working with a nutrition coach, because while we may be the experts to some degree on nutrition and lifestyle changes and things like that, you're the expert on you. So it's not going to work. If we come up with the most beautiful, effective plan ever, but it's not something you're willing to execute, right? It's not going to happen. So we need to kind of work together and figure out what do we need to do and what will work for you, and kind of combine those two things to create a plan that is completely and totally doable. Now, it's important. Later on, there's going to be videos on what to eat, right? So if you're doing this on your own, it makes it much easier. Is there actually going to be one on habit change even, so you can start to develop some of the strategies that we use to help people with those goals even too. So all those will be videos coming up. Important things to take away though, especially if you're starting this with us, is that you're not going to be weighing and measuring things. You're not going to be counting calories or macros or any of that. None of that's sustainable long-term, right? So we generally don't do that with people. There's some extreme cases or in very performance-oriented athletes that we may do some stuff with like that. Or a lot of times we don't think you're eating enough. We may actually do that to make sure that we're getting proper nutrition, especially if you're training hard. But for the most part, for most people, most of the time, we don't need to count or weigh and measure, right? So, review, we're gonna look at where you're at, look at where you wanna go, develop a plan to get there, and work on everything from food to sleep to nutrition to help you get to where you wanna go and then maintain that.